Cooler temperatures and some rain have reduced wildfire activity in parts of BC, but the relief may be short-lived, and it's not being felt in all parts of that province. The CBC's Sarah Galashan joins me now live from Coquitlam, BC to talk about that. So Sarah, it's raining where you are. How much help is this weather?
Certainly, Andrew, we have seen wildfire activity reduced pretty significantly, pretty substantially in the last few days. And the rain that we're seeing and the cooler temperatures, not just here in the Lower Mainland where I am, but all the way up the South Coast and in cities that you'll be familiar with. Kamloops has rain, Kelowna has rain, Prince George has rain right now. And the number of active wildfires in BC is just over 360. That is down from more than 400, and that was just on Friday. At the same time, though, we do now have 6 wildfires of note, fires that are burning so visibly and significantly and of threat to communities. They are given this moniker, a fire of note, and they're given a name. And significantly as well, one part of the province that is not getting the kind of rain that we're seeing here is the southeast, the Kootenays, and that is where we are seeing over the weekend more than 800 properties from the village of Slocan having to be ordered evacuated by Sunday morning because of wildfires coming closer. I want to show you the visuals we were provided recently by the BC Wildfire Service of the firefight in this part of the province. It is a fight that is being led by a team who's from Australia. Their focus right now is a complex of 6 wildfires that are active that have, as I say, pushed closer to communities, significantly the village of Slocan, which had to evacuate by Sunday morning. And this morning, CBC spoke with the mayor of Slocan, who talked about how the evacuation did go quite smoothly. They had a bit of a warning that it was coming, so they anticipated it. But what you can never really anticipate is how quickly these fires can start. And she talked about the lightning strikes that caused these fires and how quickly that happened and how, because of that, this all kind of took them by surprise. Take a listen.
It really felt like out of the blue, there was a lightning storm that came through, and I myself had witnessed one of the fires that started on Ponderosa with the lightning storms, and it was just, I guess that pod came through, and there were a number of fires that started as a result of lightning. And from that point, a number of those fires grew into serious fires that are impacting the small Slocan Lake villages.
One other wildfire of note to note here is the Shetland Creek wildfire. It's been burning for some time now. It is now grown to 250 square kilometers in size. It is burning about 70 kilometers west of Kamloops, and all of that fire growth, it did prompt a number of properties to be ordered evacuated. Those ones just outside of Spence's Bridge. Andrew?
And how long will these temperatures stay cool?
I mean, certainly we're taking it today, but if you look at the forecast, it's not going to be with us for very long. I mean, it is summer, so we're not expecting to have this kind of rain. But probably today, tomorrow, still a little bit cool in some parts as of Wednesday, but definitely things starting to heat up into the end of the week. And in places like Kelowna, Kamloops, we're by Friday hitting the 30s and you know, even higher potentially, depending on what city you're actually talking about. What we understand from BC Wildfire Service, though, is that this weather system, it is moving in the direction of Alberta, which could be a good thing. It's difficult to forecast that many days out, pardon me, but they are hoping that this is going to travel through the southeast. That could mean that there could be cooler temperatures. There could be some more precipitation. There might be some precipitation in the southeast tonight, but right now, what they are getting in the southeast is pretty much standard. What they have been dealing with, they're not banking on any weather change, because, like I say, that forecast is a little too far out to suggest that they are going to get it. But that's what they're hoping could happen here. But as I say, for the rest of BC, we are seeing those temperatures go back up, and that always means a higher risk of wildfire potentially. Andrew?
All right, Sarah, thank you. The CBC Sarah Galashan live in Coquitlam, BC. Hundreds of people have been forced from their homes in the Slocan Valley of British Columbia due to multiple wildfires. This part of southeastern BC is known as the West Kootenay. Many evacuees are now in the nearby city of Castlegar. They are facing long waits to register for emergency services. Complicating evacuation efforts is the closure of Highway 6 along Slocan Lake. Let's take you to that region now and bring in Tanya Gordon. She is the mayor of Silverton, located on the shores of Slocan Lake, and we've reached her just north of there in the village of New Denver. And Mayor, can you just tell us what have the past few days been like for you and as a resident and the mayor of Silverton?
The last few days have been pretty hectic and a lot of communication with some residents. We still have quite a few residents from Silverton that have stayed in New Denver area. So everybody's just looking for information, and I seem to be the person that most people have come to looking for that.
And so what kind of information have you been giving people?
Just basic information on what we've been hearing about the fire, that it has not approached Silverton yet. It's still a few kilometers south of Silverton. Most residents just want a little bit of reassurance that the fire hasn't hit Silverton.
So it hasn't hit Silverton, it's still a few kilometers out, and you're currently under an evacuation alert. If it becomes an evacuation order, how are the routes out of New Denver and Silverton?
Well, currently we have Highway 6 up to Nakusp that is open, and we also have Highway 31A over to Caslow that's open. South towards Slocan has been closed due to the fires, but we do have the two routes. The night that Silverton went under evacuation order was a night that we also have seen our highway to the north of New Denver get closed due to another wildfire. So at that time, we actually only had the one route for Highway 31A over to Caslow.
Have you ever seen a summer like this in your part of BC when it comes to forest fires?
Not in the immediate area. I have seen it elsewhere, but not in this area. We've had smoke conditions before, but never with fire this close and never with this much fire around us.
Are you concerned about the fire getting closer?
Personally, I am not. We've done numerous fire smarting around Silverton, and a lot of the residents in Silverton have done a lot of fire smarting. The area just south of Silverton has also been heavily fire smarted by a local company here. To be honest with you, I feel pretty confident that we should be all right.
That is good news. I'm sure a lot of people are feeling a little relief hearing you say that. Now, you live in an historic community, though, right, with lots of old wooden buildings, but also there are large stands of old-growth timber close to your communities. How concerned are you about that?
The timber, standing timber, dead timber, actually very much concerns me. Here in our area, we're actually surrounded by 3 provincial parks. We have the Valhalla to the west, and then we have the Kokanee Glacier to the east, and then we've also got Goat Range to the north. So we're surrounded by provincial parks, and I'd actually like to see some fire smarting and plans going forward into these provincial parks. We watched that fire rip through the provincial park across the lake here in the Valhallas the other night, and that fire moved so fast.
It just moved really, really fast. Can you tell me what that was like in terms of what you saw and what you heard about it?
It was quite the sight to see. We watched that fire just race down the lakeside. Within hours, it had moved, I would say, probably about 6 to 8 kilometers. It was very fast-moving fire. It was shooting numerous sparks across the lake. It was quite the sight to see. I don't want to see that again, though.
I'm sure you don't. All right, so people have been, you say, calling you, trying to get some information from you. What are they telling you in terms of how they're feeling about all of this?
A lot of people are very anxious just to get home. We have a lot of anxious people. A lot of people just want information and just a shoulder to cry on. We come from a great community here with a lot of community support. Everybody is helping everybody out. If somebody is struggling, there's always people that are able to help them through that. Just reach out to your community. Like I said, we live in an awesome community here. We have a local crew here that's feeding local firefighters and anybody that's looking for a meal. Just come and talk to them and they'll do their best for you.
Mayor, it's good of you to take the time during these tough times. Appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tanya Gordon is the mayor of Silverton, BC, one of the communities under an evacuation alert. Fires inside the community of Jasper, Alberta have been extinguished. That's good news for beleaguered residents forced from their homes. Federal Environment Minister Steven Guilbeault spoke earlier.
All the fires within the community have been put out. Crews are now bringing power back on and looking to prepare the community for a staged re-entry, although there are no firm timelines for when that occurs.
Images from inside the town show the extent of the destruction. Close to 1/3 of structures have been destroyed. Early estimates suggest the damage could top $700 million. As the CBC's Julia Wong tells us, what evacuees really want to know is when they'll be allowed home.
Well, Andrew, I mean, that's the million-dollar question, right? When can residents actually get back into the town side? When can they see their houses with their own eyes for themselves? But what we heard during this press conference earlier is that there still is no timeline, and that's going to be a really tough pill for residents to swallow because they have been waiting eagerly ever since fire pushed them out of Jasper last week. Now, as you were mentioning, and we're going to pull up a map right now, about 1/3 of structures inside the town were destroyed. And so those main areas of devastation, of damage, are in the central part of the town side of Jasper and sort of that southwest part of town. Now, critical infrastructure like hospitals, the water treatment plant, those things were saved, but other things that are considered essential were destroyed. So we're talking grocery stores, we're talking pharmacies, gas stations, things that people will need and will need to be set up and running before they are allowed to go back home. So as the federal environment minister did mention a little earlier, they are looking at that staged re-entry, but many things have to be put in place before that staged re-entry can even begin. And as such, there is no timeline. Now, CBC asked on that call whether it is the danger inside the town or whether it is trying to get that critical infrastructure up and running that is preventing people from going back into the town site. And here's what officials had to say.
Conditions are not safe within the community to allow access in terms of incident stabilization, in terms of all the work being done to deal with damage within the community. But the wildfire threat is certainly still real. It will still be significant in 3 days' time when we start to see increased fire behavior.
So in 3 days' time, that's August 1st, and that is a date that officials are watching very closely. We already see in the Environment Canada forecast that is when temperatures are expected to go back up again. So we're talking high 20s, and that is what has fire officials concerned because we could see that heightened risk.
And there have been questions about whether more could have been done, Julia, to prevent the fire from getting as bad as it did. What did officials have to say about that?
Yeah, and that's a question we often hear when we see such massive wildfires that create such huge destruction. But what we heard several times during this press conference was that that question was pretty much rejected. The premise of that question was completely rejected. Parks Canada saying that they had been working over and over, the years to mitigate something like this from happening. So whether that's fire starting, removing brush from vulnerable areas, or whether that's putting sprinkler systems in key parts of town, they have been working, they say, quite hard to make sure something like this either wouldn't happen or wouldn't get as bad. Now, I do want to note that the mayor of Jasper, Richard Ireland, he did jump into that press conference a little late, and he was quite forceful in pushing back against that question, saying, again, that he rejected the premise of it, saying that he did not see this as a failure, that what fire crews were able to do was, in fact, save 70% of town. We've been focusing a lot on that 33% of structures that have been destroyed, but he said things could have been even worse. But what officials and crews on the ground were able to do was save a higher percentage of things in town because of all the focus and effort and all the work that has been done over the years. We do want to run a little clip from Parks Canada, again, pushing back on that question.
So not only was the fire moving with the wind, but the air in front of that fire was being preheated by that flying debris, making the fire go even faster. There is nothing any human on Earth or any piece of equipment could have done standing in front of that wall of fire that would have allowed them to stop it. It's just not possible.
So quite an emotional response to that question that we just heard. And then I do want to note, switching gears a little bit, that the Federal Environment Minister and Parks Canada's CEO has said that they will grant any requests that is sent to them. They will provide any assistance that is needed, whatever Jasper needs to get back up and running. They say they are committed to doing that for as long as it takes.
The CBC's Julia Wong in Edmonton.